All right. This is Jeff Townsend, and Bill DeMott's with me here as always, and you are joining us for another live episode of the Bill DeMott Experience. I say live if you're listening or watching this later. We're actually doing this live at 9 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday across social media platforms. So if you want to be a part of the live interaction, make sure you join us live, Bill. It's fun.
This is live. All those years of live television and things like that, I prefer this so much more better than.
Yeah, you're used to it, man.
But
you've been out of the live game for a while, and now you're getting back in it. You feel good about it?
Well, I feel good about it because we're in control of it.
That's true.
I feel really good about it.
We're 100% in control of it. Yeah. Unlike other situations you've been in, this particular one we are 100% in control of. So, man, hopefully you had a good week. How's the foundation doing? I mean, we start every episode off with that because it's important.
Super, super busy as we continue. One of the things that got very busy for us over the past 2 years is Red Ribbon Week, and a lot of that with the elementary schools and middle schools, talking about with the kids and, things like that. So we had a very, very cool week within the state of Florida. And tomorrow evening I head out, and we have a bunch of schools in New Jersey next week. So everything's going really good, man. Really, I had a great interview with a senior from American University in DC today, who was doing a very interesting piece on impaired driving. And we had a nice 40-minute talk, and the foundation will be brought up in that. So I'm excited to see what she comes up with at the end of the semester with that. And but everything's going great, man. Thank you always for asking. And we just keep moving forward in everything we do.
You said last week potentially some big news coming. Is that still in the works?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep with the potential for now. Potentially big news tomorrow, which would be Friday for everybody who's listening and not live with us. Friday the 27th, I should hear what I'd like to hear, and that'd be pretty significant news for the foundation. So I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. So maybe next week we'll hear more. Maybe.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Fingers crossed.
Say potentially.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So the foundation is for a great cause, and of course you can go to jefftshirts.com and find the foundation T-shirt there. Proceeds, of course, go to the foundation. We're going to plug that. And I also had to plug Jeff T-shirts. Yeah,
I like Jeff T-shirts. I like, because listen, not only is my T-shirt coming to 5X, but it's some of the other ones too. So I'm gonna start donning some more JT T-shirts soon.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you'll be. No one will know what the hell you're wearing, but you'll look cool though. Dang it!
I'll be the walking billboard.
There you go. You can get the "Keep Being You, Keep Being Great" shirt.
Yes.
That's my favorite. That's definitely my favorite. Bill, tonight, those listening live, they're going to see the title that I have titled this. It is Ric Flair is All Elite, and TNA is back. Now, before we dive into all this stuff, Bill, I must confess, I have not watched any wrestling this week except for clips. So usually I'm the one that's watched more than you. I think this week you got me beat.
We might be even this week, and the only reason we might be, and here they are making their appearance, as always, my two hoodlum dogs.
The chair is blocking the view from out behind him.
Trying to block him this time, but you see him. He's as big as the chair, and he just kind of moves it out of the way. Jeez, Lou. Mano. Oh, come over here. I'm trying to talk here. Thank you. Yeah, so I think I'm with you. A lot of it had to do with, we're huge baseball fans in this house, so a lot of watching the championship series that were going on, and of course my junior version of me played his last 2 varsity games for the fall season. So we've been baseball heavy this week. But I'm like you, I've caught a lot of the clips. I've watched a lot of the highlights from everything. So I think we'll be on the same page. I think we're good.
All right. Hey, I'll take it, man. So with that being said, let's kick it off with the major news that coming out. First of all, I have not watched it yet, and I'm going to. There's a lot of people saying that this was their favorite episode of Dynamite ever, AEW Dynamite last night.
So I've heard different opinions from it, and I think a lot of it had to do with Ric Flair coming out. I did catch the last part of last night's show. I like when I don't know what's going on, because I think we've talked about it in the past. A lot of things we could miss a bunch of weeks and not really miss anything. But yeah, I think they had a good cliffhanger for a finish. But
which I haven't seen yet, so I don't want to sit here and act like I'm an expert on it.
Well, I'm going to leave it like that because I don't want to ruin it for you, because I'm really not a fan of spoilers. But the Flair thing, the best part about Ric Flair coming out to me was Sting's reaction.
Yeah, and we're gonna and I have that.
Yeah.
So if you want me to go ahead, I can go ahead and we'll kick it off.
Yeah, hit it, man. That was the best part to me.
Let's hit it and make sure I got the right one here. Of course, all credit here to AEW. This is a clip actually directly from them, but as usual, I got to put the logo over it to, even though you're allowed to critique and share content online under Fair Use Act, they still like to catch you on Content ID, especially on YouTube. So yeah, but we do have it here, and it's we'll share the clip of all week. I'll set it up. All week there was an announcement made that Tony Khan had a surprise, that he had a gift for Sting, because of course Sting just announced that he is retiring officially in March.
Right.
And all week it's been said that Tony Khan had a gift for him. So this is, we'll pick up where this goes here.
Okay.
That Tony Khan has a very special gift for Sting. And I'm proud to bring out that special gift right now.
Well, what is it? Do you have any idea? What the hell? Wait a minute. No way. Hold on.
Nature Boy!
The Nature Boy, Ric Flair! So much history, as you said. I'll never forget that Clash of the Champions match. It put Sting on the map. He referenced it, thanks to Flair.
You know that in life, there are moments that are magical. They're few and they're far between. And that's the magic of the chemistry of whatever you do in life that makes you the best. 35 years ago, this gentleman and I set history on TBS. First Clash of Champions against WrestleMania. And brother, I've told him this when I inducted him in the Hall of Fame. To go 55 minutes in a match 35 years ago or tonight is hard. He never took a deep breath. He lived up to all the potential, and he is not only one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of our business, one of the biggest celebrities, but damn it, he's probably the nicest guy I've ever known. So when I got an invitation, and I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart, when I got an invitation from Tony, Mr. Khan, to come and be part of this band, I want to be right all the way till, is it March, I guess? Damn it, that time flies, but brother. If you'll have me, man, I want to ride the wagon with you, man.
Talk about putting somebody on the spot, right?
So let's start off with the obvious question. What does that mean?
I think, so if you go by everything that's gone, because, this blew up every social media platform on the planet. And I think, this leads to a lot of people guessing. But I'm going to be the Debbie Downer. Here's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see Rick wrestle in AEW. I don't, and I say that with all due respect and sincerity.
Are you referencing that because just this video, cuts off, but what happens is one of my favorite heels of all time, Christian Cage.
The best.
One of the best heels of all time, no doubt. one of my favorites. I'll go on the record and say it every day of the week.
Yep.
Comes out. He kind of throws out a challenge for Darby Allin and Sting to gather up a tag team partner. They could use the old, he said, a classic Christian, another great Christian Cage promo, quite frankly. He kind of mentions, hey, you want to have Ric Flair tag along? That's fine, but his pacemaker might give out. He references something like that. Is that what you're referencing? Is that what you're bringing up here, Bill, that it was kind of partially, maybe potentially teased, but not really full out?
Yeah, but I think you were going to get that from whether that was the conversation before the evening or not. You're going to get that from Flair. He's going to give the people, like, the man's a master.
Yeah.
Of manipulating the crowd and getting the people invested in things. And so I think that the thought of Flair getting in the ring is what's going to draw a different audience for AEW. So I think there's a lot of things that went into this. I personally don't want to see Rick wrestle in AEW. I would love for him to be the corner guy and get the bings in there on certain, heels and things like that along the way. But Sting's screwed. He has to do this on his own. Darby Allin's banged up, can't do anything.
He's banged up from that Christian Cage match.
Well, he's banged up from the stupid stunts he does when he's not wrestling. I mean, let's face it. The things he does, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But I think he's got guy with one arm. He's got Flair. And I think Christian was the perfect segue to all of that, tying it in. I think that really brought everybody back to the show when Christian came out. But I think you're going to see Sting do the greatest hits. From what I understand, there's talk of him and Edge tagging and some of the top baby faces in the company tagging with Sting along the way. I mean, I would love to see a surprise every month. So 3 or 4 more surprises every month, somebody coming out. I'd love to see Luger come out. I'd love to see, Sting's guys come out and things like that. And we may see that. But I think it was really cool for Flair to say, hey, if you'll have me, brother, I'm here for the long haul, which is till March. So genius to me is you bring a different crowd into AEW now.
Yeah. Flair did. I don't know how recent. It was recent. It was on Joe Rogan's podcast. And he basically said that he really can't be involved with WWE right now simply because all the other business dealings he's involved in, they're going to want a cut of it. So that deterred him away from any sort of a Legends deal and all that, which I'm sure opened the door for this situation where Tony Khan probably legally a little bit more reasonable an allowance on that. So which I think probably was able to bring Ric Flair in easier. He's probably more negotiable with the crowd.
And the I don't know if it's the correct word or not, but the loyalty to Vince doesn't need to be there because Vince isn't there anymore. You know what I mean? It's not the same company. So I think it's a little easier to sleep on that.
Because he has gone pretty public saying how much he respects Vince McMahon.
Yeah. And he, his relationship with Hunter and everybody else. But, it's, listen, Flair's one of the best, and he's one of the best businessmen there ever was in this business. So
he's making more money now than he probably was ever.
Yeah. And he's going to take advantage of the opportunity. So good on him. Good on, I'm going to hold off on saying good on Tony Khan for getting that get. I want to see where it goes. Just as a fan, I'd like to see where it goes, but it's a good jumping off point, man. How do you go wrong with Flair coming out? And I mean, you had for people that were there during that time, you had Shivani, Sting, and Flair in the ring again on a TBS show.
Talk to us about that, Bill, because you were a part of WCW for all those years. How were these two guys being Ric Flair and Sting, how are they viewed in that company? But I'm not just talking, obviously I know how I viewed him, how his fans view him, but talk to us backstage and what it was like for all you and the gals.
For people that weren't caught up in all the hullabaloo, and I say the politics of all the things that were going on, and Flair's very vocal about how the company was run the last X amount of years, and Sting will talk about it, and we all talk about it. But, Flair nailed it. Like, Steve Borden is one of the nicest guys walking the earth.
He always avoided that political culture there, didn't he?
For all of us who had a chance to get to know him as a person, you appreciate it. I mean, we all have our moments where we fly off the handle or something like that, especially in this business, when you're passionate about it and you feel a certain way. But he was highly regarded as just one of the, I feel like he could, in my eyes, he couldn't do anything wrong. Like, if you cut, the first time I got to step in the ring with him, I was like, this is the coolest crap ever. Because he was genuinely a good guy who wanted good things to happen for the people he was around. And then Flair was Flair. He's the GOAT. So, but Rick kept to himself and kept to his people because it was a different atmosphere back there. But my best memory of these two, and everybody's talking about the Clash. Personally, the night they worked together in Panama City to say goodbye to WCW, that was huge, man. It was huge. There was no, and listen, Shane McMahon and everybody knew that going into it. This is the right way to end this, was to have Flair and Sting go out and do what they did. Just I don't know their personal relationship. Naturally, we all see it playing out on TV now, and when Flair inducted Sting and all those things. But there's a genuine respect for each other. And what happened. So I think and then you get Shivani, who sounds the same as he did back then. And he's there and genuinely excited to see that happen. The funny part to me is, Sting's face. And I was listening to, and knowing me, it was probably LaGreca, Dave on Busted Open, was saying, how did you hide Sting? I mean, how did you hide Flair the whole day? Because that was a genuine reaction. And if you're Rick, like, you're not just sitting on a bus. Rick wants to go out and meet everybody and see everybody and hug people, and he wants to be around it. So I think it was really cool to see that reaction. But to me, I thought it was really special. I really appreciate the fact they kept going back to on TBS. And I think, and to me, that's the thing, in my opinion, that's going to draw it's not going to draw the typical AEW fan in. It's going to draw wrestling fans in. And that's not a shot at AEW fans. Just AEW fans are different. They're a different animal. They're loyal to it. But I think there's going to be a crossover now. And I think there's interest in seeing what happens from here. The other thing I thought was really cool was watching a young man like Darby Allin watch all this happen in front of him.
Yeah.
Because the look on his face was like, I'm watching wrestling history here, so that was I thought the whole thing was really cool. I'm a big fan of nostalgia and for really cool moments. So I think that was one of them. And to your point, going back to your point that I never want to forget, Christian coming out and raining on that parade was the greatest thing ever.
He's the best. I mean, I'll say he's the best heel in wrestling because Roman Reigns is in and out and he's still great. But for me, I vintage Christian Cage heel is just amazing.
Total package. He can talk, he can work, he can,
perfect heater, man. He just put that. He just draws heat.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obvious, and I've talked about him on a million different occasions, but one of my favorites of all time. I think incredibly underrated, like we said before, but he's definitely best as heel. And I don't know who they have there or in WWE really that'd be any better than what he just gets it. And he doesn't break from what he's doing either, No.
And part of that's because he's so damn headstrong and believes what he's doing is the right thing to do on and off camera. But I think that he's to forgive the pun, he's the total package because he walks it and talks it the same way. Like, everything matches up. This believable from start to finish. He never phones it in. You know what I mean? He never phones it in, and he takes advantage of every opportunity he has. And he's another guy that, he's such a pro that everyone around him gets lifted up into his, his orbit of what he does,
Yeah. So obviously Edge coming back out of retirement was so big.
Yeah.
And the way he went out was so, it was actually sad. Let's just say it. He did have that moment, though, where he retired. Well, Christian, on the other hand, is kind of like he's had a couple concussions and you just never heard from him again.
Yeah.
So to me, when he came back for the Royal Rumble, as you remember,
Yeah.
then you kind of wondered, is he going to be back? Then shortly thereafter, he's with AEW, which to me was exciting because we're going to get to TNA today, but what he brought to the table and the years he put into TNA were just absolutely incredible. And to me, to see him get some more time is great because he didn't even get a goodbye.
No.
And for a career like that, not to even get a goodbye.
And it's a travesty to think that we may never see Jericho and Christian get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. It's a travesty to think that because they both had that career. But
I think Christian and Edge as a tag team is a possibility because we've seen them do that with people like Booker T, NWO guys. Or some people they do have a couple timers. I mean, like I think Sean Waltman's even a couple times, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's possible, but Christian as a single career, I think if you really match it up with other people they've inducted, he's still a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I don't know if you'll, let alone both of them. I don't know if you'll ever get that.
Right. And that's a travesty.
But then again, he seems to be a pretty credible business guy and doesn't burn any bridges. And in fact, you always hear the story back when he was he came back to WWE from TNA, and Dixie Carter, they wanted to induct Ric Flair in the Hall of Fame in WWE. So they arranged an agreement with Dixie Carter where she could pick who she wanted to come back to the show in exchange for who could be on the show from WWE in exchange for them being able to use Ric Flair.
Right.
And I don't know if she could pick top level people like Undertaker or Cena, but she chose Christian. I mean, that just shows you that he seems to do the right things and not burn bridges along the way.
Yeah, he's a stand-up cat. And I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about it. If not tonight, we will talk about it as we go forward with TNA. But I believe some of Christian's best work was done in TNA.
Oh yeah,
and we can talk about that as we go forward because the same thing's been said about Kurt Angle and a couple other superstars that their best work was done there. So, but Christian is one of those guys, and I think how funny is it that we had Sting and Ric Flair in the ring. And no disrespect to anybody, but we have more to talk about with Christian. And so I go back, so I want to segue back to Adam Copeland. It was a big deal that he was there, but now everything else that's going on, that's kind of the I don't want to say the thrill is gone, but it's kind of just another acquisition. You know what I mean? It's another top superstar, legendary guy who's with AEW now, but
because it feels like they're trying to, sorry to cut you off. It feels like they're trying to figure out how to handle him cautiously.
Yeah.
And that was never the case with Christian on TNA or when he debuts, they just let him loose. It doesn't seem to be like, we got to really overthink about how we're going to book this guy. In fact, you just kind of let him do his thing. And I think that's why he's able to, I mean, if he's sliding under the radar and if people aren't realizing how great he is, that's kind of silly, but I think that's what kind of allows him to do what he does,
Yeah, but it's that thing of you bring in this legendary talent, and within a month or so, he's just another member, on the roster. And it's unfortunate how these things play out, right? But Sting's retire, so that takes, that comes to the front burner. Flair's there, comes to the front burner. Christian, who's what we're talking about most here, but you see these guys and girls that come in, and don't get me wrong, we see the same thing in WWE. There's this big push for this talent, and then when they get there, there's so much other business to do. But that was my fear, if you remember when we talked about Edge leaving, was How long does he stay smoking hot? And will that fan base keep him hot?
Christian's going to be there, and he's going to be consistent. He's going to,
But I think he's one of those guys you have to have out there all the time to appreciate it.
Yeah. Exactly back to my point. It feels like they're trying to handle him with kid gloves, per se. Which, I mean, WWE does the same thing when they bring somebody in. They don't want somebody significant. They don't want to make them look bad, but they don't want them to bury everybody. I mean, like, there is a fine line, but I think that's different for how Christian's handled with Edge.
Yeah,
but that's allowed him to have some good opportunities, especially once they weren't tag teaming.
But I'm sure Adam is has a good bit of control of what he's doing, and it's well scouted out. So my view is from like a fan standpoint of hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. When am I supposed to get behind it? And here's a bad comparison. I don't mean it this way, but Wardlow. He comes back. He does the same thing he did when he left. Who cares? When am I supposed to believe in this thing? When am I supposed to get behind it?
You always go back to Wardlow, Bill.
It always goes back to Wardlow.
No, I understand too. I definitely see a lot, and I think everybody does. But then again, it seems like there's almost like a dilemma on how do we handle this we'll just say superstar, like Adam Copeland.
Yeah.
But yet still build our own guys appropriately, our original guys, or just trying to build people in general. That might be where AEW has struggled a little bit. Yeah. They do have pillars of people that have been there and been significant.
Yeah.
But it's the developmental part. So you bring in the CM Punks, which is great. You bring in Adam Copeland, which is great. You bring in the Sting, which is great. But it's also how do you develop your current guys as well? And that's something they're still navigating through as a young company, it appears.
Yeah, and one of their shows should be designed just for that. If you're going to do it like the NXT, right? And you and I talk about the developmental part of it.
Yep.
They have to make one of their shows, in my opinion, designed just for that.
Yeah.
And here's the example of why I say that. We saw that the one half of the Australian tag team, the kid who's not hurt, the tall kid, the good athlete. Yeah. I forget his name. But he confronts Kenny Omega's nemesis. Jeez, I'm forgetting everybody's name right. Don Callis.
Yeah.
So Hobbs steps in his face, and that kid doesn't back down. Well, Hobbs, right before that, put Jericho in the hospital. Why isn't this kid afraid of him? Those are the things I look at as when you're building these characters and these personalities and these superstars. There's nothing consistent. I'd like to think there's more thought put into it, but it just comes off. So who am I supposed to get behind? I know it's not about Hobbs, so everybody in the world should never get face-to-face with Hobbs after that Jericho thing.
Right.
And to me, that's what would keep Hobbs strong, even when he's not working. So that's where I look at it, like I said, and I always look at it through different classes. Because I want to watch the product for what it is, but then I go, wait a minute, there's no consistency. And that's always my fear. Whether you're a veteran and legendary coming in, or whether you're new and up and coming in, is just always that stop-start. No, we'll start it again, we'll stop it again. Because to me, that's a telltale sign of things aren't going to go very far for that character or that person.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some different, and we don't know how involved all the wrestlers are in AEW,
right?
But you're trying to honor their creative ideas,
yeah. But
yet, you still have to get back to the basics. So I think AEW's obviously, I think they're doing fine, honestly. But yeah. So summarizing this topic here, we said it last week. I'm glad that Sting gets these moments.
Yes.
He's had some unofficial, retirement thing. I mean, he made the comment he wouldn't wrestle again after WCW. Made the comment he was hurt and couldn't wrestle again after Buckle Bomb. But I mean, this is actually a moment for Sting that's well deserved. Is one of the best characters ever in professional wrestling.
Yeah, and well timed out to say, because we talked about it last week. when he was making that announcement, it was very flat in the crowd. So very well thought out, being in Philadelphia, doing all these things, a true wrestling town, Philly, and having the Nature Boy out there and everything. It was a much better response. I think a much more deserving response to everything that was going on. And I think if they keep this up, it's really going to keep people intrigued. And like I said, I hope there's more of this coming down the line for Sting as they continue to do this. There's a ton of men and women they could bring out through his career that would mean something to him, and really, really cool. So
you can't understate also how incredible Flair and Sting moments have been, and like it's mentioned in the video we just shared. And if you go back and watch the episode Dynamite, Flair an absolutely huge part of development of Sting.
Yeah. Well, the story goes that Flair was the one lobbying for Sting to become the NWA champion. And other people believed in other people, they didn't believe in Sting, but Flair stayed with him and believed in him. And let's not forget the things that Flair's going, hey, our first time out of the gate together, we went 55 minutes. I don't care that he wasn't breathing heavy. I don't care. 55 minutes, dude.
Insane.
And that's when, where's Sting coming out of? He was down in World Class, and he'd been some other places, but he was nowhere near the territory he had walked into. And in 1988, Flair was the walking wrestling god. So go 55 minutes with that man, and then wonder if I don't know if you're wondering, did I do a good job? Did I do that? As long as Flair was happy, and something clicked, because here we are 35 years later, and Flair says, yeah, I'll be by his side for the last leg of this thing. Really cool.
Yeah, those guys really catered to live audience as far as performance went. Last thing I'll say, if you're talking about the Bloodline a lot, but you should be checking out Christian Cage. Let me end it with that. I can't let that go.
He's amazing. He's amazing.
So, man, the second topic on the title of this what we've posted out here live. Yeah, for those of you listening live, we appreciate it. It's and if you aren't, feel free to join us live. It's a fun, interactive experience.
Yeah, tell someone to jump in, tweet them, X them. Is it, do you X people now, or do you tweet them? AEW bought a senile Ric Flair.
Thank you, Chad, for that. One of the live people listening. Definitely joke. And I think the thing, Flair never wants to get out of that spotlight, man. He lives for that.
So I know there was a bunch of old guys like me that have been around and were taking personal bets with themselves that Flair wouldn't have got to the ring without crying, because Ric's a very emotional guy.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just where his heart is. This is his life. This is what he does. This is the people, being in front of the camera, doing all these things. So, and that's the thing I say in a very lovingly way. It's like he made it all the way to the ring without breaking down and crying. But it's really cool. And Chad, no matter what version of Flair we get, as long as we get to see him come down some aisle, some ramp on some TV, I think people should really acknowledge it and take advantage of it. And the beauty of YouTube is everyone can go back to that Clash in '88 and watch that match and get it. And I think that's what will happen with this AEW fan base. They're going to start looking at some of these men and women they have now and going, son of a gun, there's some stuff here.
Yeah.
So
ultimately may drive more people back to WWE content.
Yeah.
But okay, so we'll go ahead and move on. TNA, Bound for Glory. Okay, not TNA, Impact. We'll get to TNA.
Impact.
Bound for Glory took place. I've only watched clips of it. Seemed to be, I don't think there's like bad Impact Wrestling shows. I just think it's about damn near impossible to find sometimes. But I mean, with that being said, it seems like from what I've watched that it was a great event. Obviously, anytime Mickie James is involved, I've watched that match. Just like I said, my favorite female wrestler ever. Just kind of lines up with my youth too, right? I mean, her coming in, and so always seeing her is great. And seems like the pay-per-view went well, man. But they did make a big announcement during the pay-per-view. And I'm going to go ahead and we'll segue into this short clip. I'll show a preview of the clip that TNA released. I mean, I keep saying it. When Impact released, stating they'd be going back to TNA. So we'll show this, then we'll get to the discussion.
Okay.
I think we all know why we're here.
I can still hear it. People want to pretend that it went away, but we're reminded of it every day. All of you, you're my brothers and my sisters, and I feel it in my core. Professional wrestling is bleeding. There needs to be a change. This is that change.
And to get there, we have to go back to where it all started.
I look around and I know that if we had everything that we wanted, then that means we didn't want or dream big enough.
They thought it had been written. They thought that the book was closed. Let's rewrite those pages, replace them with our own words, with our own story.
Sleep is the cousin of death, and we've been slept on for the last time.
We are the kings and queens of our own stories. In this story, it's time for the next chapter.
All I've ever wanted was to be here, a part of this, a part of something bigger than any one person. Now, I can.
I guess there's only one thing left to do.
TNA wrestling.
It's all about total non-stop action.
These fights will inspire you.
It's an evening that revolves around history.
This is TNA Wrestling.
TNA, great video package, by the way.
Yeah.
They've always had a pretty underrated production value to their show. For the resources they have, they've, in my opinion, this is my opinion, they've done an incredible job with production value on their product. This is another example.
You said it, and we've talked about this in the past. It's so, and I think that's about to change, but it's so hard to find or get to that you almost have to wait for the YouTube versions to come out and the things that people post because, like I'll just say, like it just in the climate, if it's too hard to get to, people just don't go to it. But the talent that's there, the leadership that's there, the veterans that are there, this is a solid group, and that's all you hear from this company. So, naturally there's been a lot of controversy, right, this week. And, the kiss of death, I think Jarrett said that's the kiss of death, bringing back, that brand's dead in the water, before it starts. And then other people are going, wow, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. My thing is now I want to see what they're going to do to bring more eyes to the product, because TNA was very easy to get a hold of. You knew where you could go every week for TNA and to do those things. And it's been a little difficult, with TV deals and things like that. I'm also very interested to see what they bring back from the past of TNA, knowing how
not the ring, because nobody wants to work in that ring.
Well, that's I think Scott D'Amore came out and said there will be no 6-sided ring, right? It's going to be a professional wrestling ring and things like that. But I'm very interested to see if AEW continues their relationship with TNA like they had an Impact, because for a while there we saw crossovers and things like that. So you see the Samoa Joes on that clip they showed and Sting and these things, so I'm excited for them. I don't think it was a bad idea. I think there's more buzz around the old Impact, now TNA again, than there's been in quite a while. And I think it's more mainstream.
One thing about TNA, and it's the case with AEW as well, Bill, they did historically, maybe recently, but historically, they did really well internationally speaking.
Yes.
And AEW does as well. I mean, let's be honest, the UK AEW is way bigger in comparison just by ratio. I mean, obviously there's more people, but I'm just saying here, but it's significant there. And TNA was as well, internationally speaking. And when you read a lot of things online, it's indicating that they want to get back into tapping into that, for one. And that brand still has a credible image, globally, well, internationally. Obviously, losing Spike was the kiss of death.
Yeah.
And they booked their way into it. They made some bad business decisions. But, I mean, all in all, that company has been significant for professional wrestling. It was really the only alternative from WWE, WWF, after WCW was purchased by WWF. And it lived to it in the sense of how in the number of significant talent it developed. You see these guys all over the place now. It was big for Kurt Angle, obviously. That's a little bit different. I don't think he had much more time left the way he was going in WWE.
Right.
It wasn't going to last. So it's a second opportunity for him. It's an opportunity for Sting that there's a good chance he may not have done anything ever again.
Right.
If he hadn't got involved with that. And you talk about people like Samoa Joe. There's just so many people that use that. Austin Aries,
Yep.
And I'm fortunate enough to get to know a few of these TNA people. And like Austin Aries is maybe controversial. He's a great dude. But this gave those kind of people a platform, man. The people that were coming out of things like Ring of Honor, that maybe even AJ Styles, man, he had a WWF tryout match.
Yep.
Passed on him. Yep. Passed on him, which, okay. But these guys are able to go there and become a part of something significant. And throughout the years, it really felt like they had this us against the world mentality as far as what they were accomplishing with what resources they had. I think it was a significant part, and it gave it got a little over the top when you brought in Hogan and Bischoff, but it was still TV that I watched. But it's been a breeding ground of some guys that when there just wasn't any room in WWE, just to be completely honest, it did allow these people that were more than deserving an opportunity to have a career and make some money.
But so now let's, excuse me, now let's look, and this is right, this is where my mind goes, because we talk about how internationally successful it was. Do you think with the talent that's there now, and it's not a knock, but you got to remember the talent that was in TNA that internationally drew the people in. Who are your... Now, I want to take out, and I'm going to make this a terrible discussion, because I'm going to take Bully Ray out of it. I'm going to take Mickey James out of it. I'm going to take... I'll tell you what, that's the only two I'm going to take out of it. Who are your international draws on TNA right now that when they go somewhere, that they don't have to bring in TNA stars from the past? You see what I'm saying? Because and the way I look at it is AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, cats like that, when they were in TNA, they were young. They were making a name for themselves, but they were young.
They still grew up there, though.
Right. But now you take an Eddie Edwards and these guys that have been in the business now for 15, 20 years coming on or whatever it is. Are they the draw? Who's going to be the... And I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm asking as a fan and as someone who wants to see how it progresses, how they're going to attack that thing. Is Trinity the one that's going to draw them in? Is Eric Young, who's a veteran of this game, going to draw them in? And so that's what I'm very curious to see how it's going to happen. Or are we going to see that thing about wrestling that people feel like, okay, now we're doing this, but we got to bring these people in to make them better? That's a good locker room. That's a hell of a talent pool in former Impact, now TNA. And I'm very curious because I've been around this business long enough to know that now that this happens, do they feel like they need the extra push of people to legitimize this? Or are they going to stand with the men and women that have been there and then standing there doing this thing and run it?
Hey, great point. And, when I obviously think of names like Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley. There's Alex Shelley, Frankie Kazarian.
Come on.
I think of people that are great, but you're right. I mean, I see your point. Like, as far as huge drawing power, who do they have? The answer is not necessarily anybody. They got to rely. First of all, I think their operating costs are pretty damn low.
Yeah.
So I think that under that department, they over succeed for what they're doing, probably, just to be completely honest. Right. But yeah, you're right. Huge draw. I'm not 100% sure, because you don't have Ken Anderson, he's a good dude. He was really big for him. Bully Ray, AJ Styles isn't coming back. Then they did a really good job of doing kind of what AEW is doing. They had like Rhino, they had Scott Steiner. Who else did they have? They had the Hardys and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know who they're going to grab to answer your question. I don't know. But
so that's my question. Are they going to dig deep and try to do the nostalgia thing? Are they going, this is my team and this is who I'm running with, And then I'm really curious, like, here's my side note. If all this was happening, here's one of the guys that's, he's a free agent now, Sami Callihan. With all of this going on, why would he leave the company? Or was this not planned out before? Or is this, one of those things? So you take a name like Sami Callihan, who is recognized, but now he's not. So I wonder what the concept's going to be and how the leadership goes about it. But I'm excited for them, and I'm excited that they did it with TNA. I think it's a good. I know it was a good brand.
It doesn't hurt anything with what they're doing.
No, it doesn't.
Let's state the obvious there.
It doesn't hurt them whatsoever. So I'm excited to think that they get back on a more nationally recognized, program and things like that. And I know they have the talent to do it. I'm just curious to see how they're going to go about drawing that audience, making that bigger audience, a wider audience. And I'm very curious to see if they still have that relationship with AEW.
That's a great point. But let's go back to the big picture here. They eventually had to secure a better television deal.
Yeah.
That's going to be...
Ultimately, that's really what it comes down to sustain any kind of motion, forward motion and keep building it. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
But I'll say it again, been a big TNA fan.
Yeah.
I thought they were a great alternative to WWE when it got a little just stale, honestly. I thought they were doing some great things. So I'm always on board with supporting them. And hey, more jobs is always a good thing. Or steady jobs for the industry is a good thing.
Keep it going.
Before we segue out of this completely, let's kind of stay on topic here. And I don't know this in detail, and I'm not sure anybody does, but Billy Corgan did announce that NWA has reached some sort of TV deal with CW. Have you heard this?
Yes, I've heard the snippets, and I kind of, like I said, I try to kind of listen to the interviews after I miss them. I'm like a lot of people. I'm a big Billy Corgan fan. I've never met him, but I appreciate his insight into the business. One, he's a fan. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And he's kept this thing going, and I feel like he's done it the right way. He's done the business justice, and I was excited to hear that there's more coming, that he's branching out, and I think NWA is that brand when it comes to pro wrestling.
Yep.
That stands the test of time. So I'm really excited to see what he does. And there's a resurgence of the business right now, and people are coming out of the woodwork and starting to announce these deals, because let's face it, whether it was a show like Heels or anything else that brought it back to the mainstream, wrestling's on fire right now.
It's absolutely
Billy Corgan's a big reason for that.
Yeah. I think he's done some great stuff, and I'm glad that, because once you get away from the companies we're talking about, you really have limited options on the indies now.
Yeah.
And what he's been able to do is recapture that. And I know that's a goal of what he's going to continue to try to recapture territories. He said that. But I think ultimately, and if you can get a live aspect involved with this, and we've said this week after week, there's still a lot of value in live entertainment.
Yes.
And I think that's why you're seeing some of these TV deals that we're seeing, because there's a value in live entertainment. Now, will TNA or NWA, will they be live? I don't know. But I think obviously there's still a lot of money in that. And that's why broadcast companies are willing to pay money and reach deals with professional wrestling right now. It is a hot product, but I mean, man, it's the live entertainment's valuable.
Agreed. 100% agree. And I was looking at, everything in wrestling's timing, right?
Yep.
Tyrus announces his retirement. A month later, Billy's announcing big plans for, NWA. You go, how do we keep missing the boat on these things? But I'm excited. And the thing is, like, you listen to Billy Corgan when he's doing his interviews, you can hear the excitement. Like, he has a plan. He's not a guy who's willy-nilly. I mean, he's a successful rock star. He's navigated that area of entertainment. So he has skin in the game, and he has knowledge of these things. So and from what I understand and what I see and hear, he's very business savvy.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for the direction of the industry. I'm really excited across the board, including AEW, now TNA and NWA, and then naturally what WWE continues to do, and NXT. I don't view NXT as a WWE. I view NXT as a whole nother animal. So I'm excited, but I'm excited for Billy Corgan, and the guys that have run Impact for all these years now that get to say, hey, we're coming back with it. We're gonna, it's gonna be bigger and better than ever. And I agree with you. That was a great promo from, like, to me, they're young. They're still the young stars, right? But those are all veterans that were in that circle.
Yep.
Talking and getting ready for it. So I'm excited for them. I'm more excited for you and I, because it's going to give us a ton of subjects and topics to talk about. And because what I think what you and I do best is we start here and we wind up over here and we come back to it. But I love it because they're all taking us on a ride.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about it. So that's the first step to do it. Something you do wonder how much more can come out of it. Like how much professional wrestling can be on television.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're just financially, all these companies are at completely different spots. So these television deals are significant for all of them, but they're just significant on different levels, but nevertheless significant. I mean, I think.
When was the last time I say this, you're more of a wrestling historian than I am. We get going and you remind me, and then it takes me to that point, but you're more of a wrestling historian. When was the last time we've had so many companies at one time be hot or be moving like in an upward direction? When was the last time? For a long time, it was WWE and then TNA, WCW, ECW, WWE, right? For the longest time. And then that broke down. And then it was WCW, WWE. Naturally, before that, it was NWA. Then it was WWF. And then it was, there's always been one or two.
Yeah.
When was the last time we've had all these companies coming out of the gate so strong at the same time?
Yeah, it's certainly, you'd have to go. And even back in the day when, I came in on the very tail end of tape trading, basically by then, by the time I really got into wrestling, it was a little bit more mainstream on television. But yeah, no, I see your point. And I think back then you could make an argument, but as far as being able to consume the content easily, which you couldn't back
right.
AWA.
That's my point. Right.
Yeah. I mean, obviously then it was huge, but WCW, WWE, just two major ones going at it then. You didn't really hear about anything else. And I think the only thing that would, and it's not even close to right now, but would be when TNA started seeing a little bit of success.
Yep.
And you also had Ring of Honor seeing a little bit of success. That's really the only time I could think of. Obviously, AEW, WWE, there's been two. But yeah, man, I'm with you. I think 17 years ago, 18 years ago, you had a couple more options. But it was different then. It was like you had the powerhouse, then you had these smaller must-see ones that you knew weren't going to completely rip off. But now it seems like you have it where there's a potential to grow, significant growth than more than two of them.
Yeah.
If done right.
And, if push comes to shove, you say there's still only one powerhouse. But we're not looking at it that way now. We're looking at it as look at all the, like, you struggle for, now you have to pick a schedule. Now I'm probably going to have to do something I've never done in 35 plus years, is I've never recorded wrestling, so I didn't miss it. We talk about a pay-per-view, we click to this or something, but there's so much content now that listen, I don't have to. If I miss it, and I don't say it like just brush it up, but if I miss it, I can catch pieces. But now I find myself in a place where I want to see what everybody's doing all the time. And I'm very interested because now here comes somebody's going here and someone's going here and someone's going to do this and someone's going to do that. And that's the part, like I got goosebumps. That's the part about wrestling that now you're making me watch your product instead of me feeling like, yeah, all right, let me see what they're doing tonight. Like, I want to know what everybody's doing now. And that's a really cool feeling to have after, I feel like, one or two clicks on the TV every week.
Yeah, and it's always funny because people are like, did you watch this? Did you watch that? And people that aren't like really into it look at me like I'm crazy when I say, believe it or not, I actually read about it just as much as I watch about it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to somebody who's not a fan when I say that statement. But it's the case. It's still consuming content. I will say, though, I think we got to be careful and not, as we see these television deals come up and stuff, and not try to compare like what success is.
Yes.
I don't know if AEW's turned a profit per se. Maybe they have, maybe they have. They don't have to tell us. We won't know. But I think for the TNA and for NWA, you got to remember where, like I just said earlier, the production costs are managed very low.
Yeah.
But what will be successful TV viewership will not even be comparable to what we try to do with AEW and WWE.
Absolutely.
Not even comparable, because you got to think right now the platform Impact is not pulling in more than a couple 100,000 at any point in time, really. NWA can't. So if they're able to do that, even that's significant for them. If TNA is able to grow just a little bit more, that's significant for them. But I think it all depends on how much your operating costs are, and that will be significant. You can still have growth. It'll just be, you can't compare it, man. We got to be careful.
And I hope, I know we won't, we'll do our best not to compare it, but I hope everybody's paying attention and talking about these things starts watching it with those eyes. Like, I don't want to compare TNA to WWE.
We don't compare the XFL to the NFL. I mean, you can, but I mean, it wouldn't be realistic.
But it's two different products.
Yep.
It's the same sport, but it's two different products. And I think as long as we look at it honestly from where it is and what it is, because no one ever complained about ROH. They watched it because that was their thing and they loved it, and then they could go watch the other brands and all these other things. And I hope that's what we get to again now. And everybody doesn't start right away with, oh, they'll never make because of TV and this and that. Don't compare them. Just enjoy them and let them get going. And then see where it takes us.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, great discussion. Let's segue into the listener interaction question part of this a little bit here. Okay, so Winter Hell wants to know if you had seen CJ Perry, Lana, as formerly known as, commented wanting to be the Paul Heyman of female managers.
I think that's a bold statement.
Yeah.
I think it's a bold statement. Here's the thing about CJ. she's a bold personality. She's one, and I say this with all due respect, she's no dummy. I know she plays a certain character and all these things, and, you know, the Russian and this and that and the other thing. By the way, 100% Russian. But that's a bold statement, and I don't believe she would make that statement unless she believes that she can get there and that there's an opportunity for her to become that person. So I'm glad to see. I'm not really sure how I feel about the interaction with her and Miro right now. To me, it's still strange. And if I had the pencil, I wouldn't have given Action Andretti that much time with Miro. It didn't help Miro. And I don't think it helped Action Andretti. And I think it could have been more subject to bringing CJ up to Miro's level. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. But I'm very interested to see what she does. And as long as it's done the right way, she will not become just a flash in the pan or you know, an act. But that's a bold statement to say she wants to be the female Paul Heyman.
Yeah, I think, and the way they brought her in immediately tied to Miro kind of, but I mean, they didn't go full into it, but that's what she was introduced as in this run initially, right, when she came in. So I think you got it. Yeah, hard to get past that. That's the person you're connected with, but certainly can be done right if planned accordingly.
Yeah.
Not going to be easy, though, just because of the automatic connection.
Yeah. If they don't rush it and it's done the right way, I think it'll be really good.
Okay, so Vince McMahon's mustache wants to know your comments on Booker T on his podcast saying Main Event Mafia was a better faction by far than the Bloodline. I will say this to Vince McMahon's mustache. I did listen to this, actually, and I think what Booker T was saying was it had the potential to be at that level. And I think what he's saying is just because of like I just said, the potential. You got to think it had Sting in there. It had Kevin Nash in there. Had that
Nash, Steiner, and
Samoa Joe, and it had the Survivor person. Who the hell is that? Anyway, but I think what he's saying is it had the potential to be, but I mean, it wasn't maybe done the best way, and it didn't have the stage, obviously. We just talked about this.
I think the Main Event Mafia was Impact's TNA's version of what's now the Bloodline. And I think but look at the time frame too. Now until how long ago was the Mafia? 15 years?
2008, yeah. Kurt Angle, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, so 15 years ago. So the evolution of the business too. So I agree. I don't think Booker's statement was we're better than. In TNA, they were the Bloodline. All the story was around them, and they were involved in all that stuff. But I don't
didn't make it 2 years though.
What's that?
The run didn't go 2 years even though.
Right.
That's the thing. It didn't hang with it like.
So
they didn't invest into it.
I would say if Booker said we were better than, if his exact words were we were better than, and I didn't hear it, so I think maybe Vince's mustache took it out of context.
And he's not the only one. It's all over the place.
But I can see the comparison. I don't mind the comparison of the two, but then I look at the time frame of each one. And then back to your point, the production of it. The being able to make this story go. TNA had one show to do it on. WWE's has 2 shows and 3 if they wanted to bring it to NXT when it started. So they had the platform that's bigger to do all these things.
Yeah.
So I don't see the two being compared ever in history. I understand the comparison of one group to the other, but I don't see the Main Event Mafia ever being close to the Bloodline.
And just like all professional wrestling, TNA was a major victim of rushing through things, which is a really big flaw of TNA. But the things they didn't rush were successful. You got to think about the build of AJ Styles is one where I think of right off the top of my head. This was not he's always been a mainstay player on TNA, but they didn't just, I mean, it was a build over time as his character developed and stuff. It wasn't rushed.
Right.
And I think they had, who is it? I'm losing the name. I think Matt Morgan, they did a pretty decent job of not rushing it. But they had some where they would, what was Crimson? Was that his name?
Yeah.
And rushed him pretty hard. And
boom, boom. Flash
hard
in the pan. Yeah,
to get
flashed in the pan.
It's hard for him to maintain that. And I think that they were, they just kind of rush things. Hell, they even try to go up against Monday Night, which is crazy. That's my opinion on that. But yeah, I don't think he was directly comparing it. I was just, I took it when I listened to it as the potential piece of it. And he's right. If you just want to compare the faction itself, it has the potential. If you want to compare the platform, not possible.
The star power in the Mafia was way bigger than how the Bloodline started out.
Okay, all elite, the elite cronies.
I love this name, by the way.
They've popped up out of nowhere on us. They want to know, and I have a video too. I'm going to relate to this and play it here in a second, but they want to know if Edge, Adam Copeland, has heat in AEW. So, to segue into this, I shared a video. I'm going to share a video with our good friends at the Wrestling Observer.
Okay.
Actually, by not good friends, they have me blocked, but I still subscribe to their stuff. So, Brian Alvarez did discuss this. We'll go ahead and play this.
All right.
Ricky says, "Don't look at me like that with those bug eyes, sir." Adam says, "It's your stupid silk slacks, dumbass." And I was like, what? And then Ricky says, "Sadly, you didn't take style from the other place." And then Adam says, "And you took it from The Rock. Good job." And there's like this weird, awkward pause.
It was very awkward.
And then Adam says, "Can't help that you're a vanilla midget version of that, but shut your mouth and talk to him instead of me, kid. Know your role." I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And then Ricky says, "Wow, that really sent me over the edge." I asked around. I didn't hear anything about there being any problem. Okay? Doesn't mean there's not.
I agree with him. I don't think there's much there, but I guess we got to have something to talk about in the wrestling journals.
And I think that's just it. It gives people. So then it goes back to my original thing of, are we watching it to appreciate it, or are we watching it to try to read between the lines on everything that happens?
Yeah.
That's the issue, I think, with AEW, from what I understand, is they get carte blanche to say what they want, and maybe they have bullet points, but there's no red flags for just saying what comes out of your mouth. So I think sometimes you're going to get that war of words, and it gets a little sketchy. But I think people look more into the, ooh, Adam's got heat. Oh, Ricky Starks. Oh, they're fighting. It's just, there can't be any kumbaya. It can't be just a promo segment of two guys throwing barbs and let's move on. Everybody's going to make a bigger deal out of it, because let's face it, you're right. It gives us something to talk about. I don't think there's anything that holds water there. So,
it kind of reminds me of like when you bring in like The Rock and he would talk and he'd have a promo with John Cena. And I don't think there was ever any real heat, but certainly not afraid to let loose. And that's just the entire environment with AEW. They've got a platform where they can do that kind of stuff. And then WWE, it's like you got to really be somebody to get off and start doing.
Yeah, but look what has AEW learned in the past 2 years when they let people come out with live mics and say what they want? Be it Punk and Adam Page and all these things that go on. Is that really the road you want to keep going down for clickbait and then to have internal, issues? So I would say walk softly with that kind of thing, and maybe not let everybody have free reign to say and do what they want, because whether we're professionals or not, someone's going to throw something out there that hits someone the wrong way, and there's going to be an issue either in front of people or behind the scenes.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's obviously been a bad thing, but they're having these instances are probably what's got the most talk about them. in a lot of senses. They've obviously had really good matches, and I think that they have more 5-star matches in their 4-year existence than WWE's 50. But Dave Meltzer ratings. But I think it's kind of like you had this environment, and I think you have your diehards that will watch it every week no matter what. But I think that other people popping in and out are because of things like this a little bit.
Turned off,
maybe turned on temporarily. I mean, maybe both. But the other mainstays that are diehards, they're going to watch it no matter what. Right. But I think they attract a few people by just some of these kind of storylines.
But then the thing is, there's no payoff to these so far. There's been no payoff to these storylines. So after a while, do I stop buying into ooh, this is a shoot, brother, and there's really heat, and God, it's just another one of these things that they don't follow through on. So I'm never been a fan of, there's heat with this guy and heat with this guy. Until you hear it from those people directly, I think everything, wrestling's real and life is a work. So
yeah.
I wait till I know it before I say it.
Okay, Bob Orton's cast.
Yes, Bob Orton's cast.
Bill and Jeff, do you think CM Punk is working the Wrestling Observer over, and he's going to end up being in a Survivor Series? So what they're referring to here is, obviously, the Wrestling Observer has been at their head of their headlines. The top of their headlines has been that it's not going to happen.
Right.
And what Bob Orton's cast is asking is he working him?
I think, going back to our initial conversation, how we started this episode, I was going to say that I can't think of another time when every company has top clickbait. Punk is relevant no matter where he is or where he was in Orlando. Hey, he was in Texas. Hey,
he was at Impact taping. So yeah.
Hey, he was at this. He was at that. So Sting's retiring, and we're still talking about Punk. we're still talking about Punk. All these things. But what people, and I don't know if we've talked about this before, but here, I'll give you a little bit of behind the curtain of what I know. In order to keep the internet people, Uncle Dave and everybody else happy, WWE releases a certain amount of stories that they allow them to tell. This gives them their clickbait and things to talk about. In return, these sites don't talk negatively about things that happen in the company. So there's a tit for tat. We'll give you certain things to talk about and get your headlines and do these things and run your shows. And in return, you don't report about the issues that are backstage or heat or all these things that are going to come out, and let us handle that first, internally.
Yeah.
So I think, is it possible? Hell yes, it's possible.
It's possible.
Is it possible for Punk even to show up for one night? Yes, they could strike a deal for one night because it'll blow the roof off the place.
Yep.
And is it possible that Punk's just keeping himself relevant? Yes, it's very possible. Is it possible Punk could be in TNA? Yes, it's possible. But the guy is a genius.
Yeah.
At keeping himself relevant.
I think you're right. We could see one way or another. He's also headstrong enough that if he didn't want to wrestle again, he wouldn't.
Right.
But I do think a bit of him, and I certainly hope that he does get another moment to round things off somewhere, sometime down the line. Does it have to be Survivor Series? No. Would it be, you're just talking off the build-up around it and all that, would it be probably a little bit hotter? Yeah. But I think, I hope he does get another run. It doesn't have, it could maybe be a month, one pay-per-view,
right.
Maybe even one night, like you said. But I hope somewhere down the line, there's a lot of people saying that, hey, he might have to earn that trust again.
I'm with you. As long as, and I know you're a big fan of Punk and what he's done and what he's still capable of doing, as am I. I hope, like you, that when we see Punk, no matter where we see him, that even if it's a short run, he goes out on a high note.
Hope it's something special.
So there's not this crappy controversy around everything, and it's all this, schoolyard crap, and it's just a guy that people have appreciated for so long. Make a run, make amends with some people, even if it's just to save face in front of the fans. But I'm like you. I hope he gets one more positive thing going because, like I said, he doesn't have to wrestle.
Yeah,
I mean, he's got enough irons in the fire to do his things. He's very creative. He's very intelligent.
He's walked away before and ever stayed off the radar. If he wants to stay off the radar, he will. I don't know CM Punk personally. My only experience with him is at a live show once. My college roommate was booing him, and he told him he was a vagina. So that's my only face-to-face interaction with CM Punk ever. He looked at me. I don't know if he thought I was saying it. I wasn't saying it, but nevertheless, it was great. But yeah, I think if he didn't want to do it, he wouldn't. He's proven that he could just disappear and care less.
Right.
But you're right. Maybe a little bit of him wants that, and I hope it's the right time and it's done right. And
yeah, me too.
And it into what's been a great, honestly, just going back when he left, and I sound like a broken record. When he left Ring of Honor after the Summer of Punk, Samoa Joe, all this great stuff, and when he left Ring of Honor, a lot of concern on if he would ever be utilized right. And reason it took years for him to work his way up through that WWE system.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Heyman certainly probably is a big part of that. And then the rest is now it's him. It's his creativity. It's what he's capable of. He just needed a little bit of a window, a little bit of an opportunity to prove himself. So I think he always has that little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I think we could see one more good thing out of him. It doesn't have to be anything crazy either. Everybody acts like we got to have something super crazy. We don't.
I just think the fans deserve to see CM Punk, the character, leave on a high note.
Yep.
That's what, as much as we as people or performers want to leave on a high note, I think the fans deserve it just for their loyalty to him. I think that would be the best conversation to have about Punk is like, okay, son of a gun, this is the way it should have went. If he's done, he's done, and whatever. But like I said, never say never. And if there's money to be made, companies are gonna make sure they do it the right way. But I'm with you. I hope that if and when he comes back, it's on a high note and it's in the positive.
Let's segue towards the end of the episode here and do our On This Week in Pro Wrestling history. So today, we'll see if we get taken off YouTube or not once we do this. I'm curious. But I'm going to share some videos as we do this. I want to start off with Monday. So it's the 23rd, and what we're going to share first here. So WCW presented Halloween Havoc from Detroit, Michigan. And the main event was a career versus career steel cage match for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. It was between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. And Mr. T was obviously involved. And then in vintage when was exact time you started in WCW?
I started in WCW in 95.
It was after this, as I recall.
Yes.
That was, yeah. But as vintage WCW fashion, there's a million things going on at once.
Right.
Frankenstein, he's alive! Seats not one fell, everyone is standing. He's got to have a referee. He's got to have T awake. Jimmy Hart's pulling Sherry down. Here comes Sting. Get up there. Look at the mess. There's the mess man. He came from underneath. He came from underneath the ring. She's on top of the cage. Sherry is handcuffing. What is going on here? They are both attacking Hogan. He ducks. In professional wrestling, he drops the leg. One, two. Oh my God.
And still, the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Hulk Hogan.
And Flair's career has come to an end.
How underrated was Sherry Martel?
Before we had Jeff Hardy jumping off the cage, damn it, we had Sherry. What a leap of faith there. That was incredible.
And then she takes the double clothesline with him. And
I couldn't get it all in there, but she took a couple tosses too, one off the top rope.
Yeah.
I mean, she took several bumps in that. Couldn't fit it all into a minute because that's always the goal.
So underrated.
Yeah, those posts are awesome. Obviously, Ric Flair didn't stay retired.
Yeah.
And
one of many times they had retirement matches or lose or leave town. And it was a hokey time in WCW. It was
so many, and I always share these, and people always tear it up on social media. The number of things going on: the Man in the Mask, Sting, Jimmy Hart, Sherry, Mr. T.
But it was
such a
that was the soup at that time. Everything was like that in WCW. So when people watch that now, when you post it now, and wrestling fans now are watching, going, "What in the blue hell is that?" But back then, it was hot as hell. It was unbelievable. But you still, even now when you look at it and go, to your point, there's so much going on. There was so much. It just took away from what was the end game here. So
wrestling wasn't quite at that huge peak yet.
Right.
Came 2 or 3 years later, but yeah, it's just they crammed so much into. And these aren't Ric Flair 55-minute matches either.
No,
these are 20-minute segments, intros included.
Yep.
Topped with all of this going on.
Yep.
And there's always so much of that, and it was so. And even with got huge NWO and all that. Anything Hogan's involved in particular, had so many components.
There was always a dozen guys involved in the segment, no matter what it was. And so people got so upset. Oh, it's freaking 4 segments. It's 40 minutes. But the wrestling was only 3 minutes of a 25-minute segment. But there was always, and it kind of stayed that way for a little bit in WCW, especially when I got there. There was a couple hundred guys behind the curtain because there was always so many people involved in everything that was going on. Everything was a run-in. Everything was, a schmoz. But that was when I saw it when you posted, because I told you I watched them all when you posted it. And it just brings you back to a time looking at it and go, man, looking at it now, that was hokey as hell.
It was so much.
But Sherry Martel was awesome.
Yeah. I watched that, and I just heard leaping off that cage, man, just fearless, taking the bumps, and always just such a team player. I mean, I've never met her personally, but man.
She was super, super special. She was a great lady. I enjoyed my time with her. I learned a lot from her, and she was all about the product, man. She was all in. Whatever her position was in it, she was all in.
Maybe she'll be all elite. I'm just kidding. Okay, let's go to October 24th here. Another thing. This is one of my favorite matches, actually. 1993, WCW Halloween Havoc took place in New Orleans, Louisiana. The main event saw Vader defeat Cactus Jack in a Texas death match. You remember this?
Yes.
All right, we'll go into a minute of it here.
Remember, pinfalls do not count. A 1, 2, 3 does not count in winning or losing a match.
He's fighting it.
A fan is heading.
Oh!
The WCW World Champion.
Bottom rope, he wouldn't let Vader suplex him. Oh! Somebody's got to make an attempt to win this pretty soon. Oh! To the living death. Oh! I guess the only positive thing out of it is they were both pretty ugly to begin with.
There's the table.
Cactus spot. Whoa! He tries a sunset flip him. Oh! Again. Oh!
It's amazing.
Whack! He hit it.
Check and see if Cactus Jack can continue. They may stop this thing.
7, 6. What has Race got in his hand? He stung him with it.
Vader's up at 10. This match is over.
Vader rose to his feet first. Here is your winner.
Listen, here's the thing. That's probably the hardest Mick Foley's ever hit anybody in his life.
He was wailing on him.
There was only one way to work with Leon. And he did not mind getting it back the way he gave it. But that's the hardest hitting you will ever see Cactus Jack, Dude Love, Mick Foley, take any character. That's the hardest hitting you'll ever see him. Was literally going, okay, this is this is a legitimate fight. And you saw that stuff just from the clip we watched. And
hit him over the head with a camera.
I want everybody to go back and watch the whole match.
Oh, yeah.
And that would never fly today, that match. Would never fly today.
No. As I do this every day, I actually watch the whole match and I edit it. So I really get an appreciation for it. And you know, Bill, how hard it is to find it's got to be a minute.
Yeah.
That's my rule.
And then what minute?
You know how hard it is?
Yeah.
And I got to throw in the commentary too, right? Like Jesse Ventura saying they're both, ugly. I try to throw in a lot of that stuff. It's so hard to capture that. Like, what do I pick from a minute?
The essence of it, yeah.
It's like an art form, right? Like, I have to take a minute and tell a story with these and paint the picture of what happened.
Absolutely.
And it's cool, but just like there, a minute captured it all. It was not easy to do, but just wailing on each other, man.
What a fight. What a fight. But that's the thing that's the thing that Leon did great, was fight. I mean, you go back and you'll post it when the time is right, when they knocked his eye out in Japan, right? He had to put his eye back in. But he took it as well as he gave it. but those matches then meant more.
Shows you how great Cactus Jack McFoley was.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How he's not appreciated during that time. Oh, my gosh.
He's amazing.
Just throw him in there with the champion and a non-title match, by the way. But, yeah, it's I remember when Vader challenged Mr. Feeney on Boy Meets World to a Texas death match. So my mind instantly went to that match. Anyway, so let's move on to the 25th. Bill, you were there for this. This is 1998. WCW's annual Halloween Havoc pay-per-view is held in the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. Due to complications with the runtime, actually it was 3.5 hours instead of the 3 they were allowed. A lot of the stations showing the pay-per-view cut the show off before it ended, meaning the main event wasn't even seen by fans at home. Because of this, the main event was replayed the next night on Monday on Nitro, Monday Night Nitro, and it had a record 7.78 million viewers, which was the most of any wrestling match on cable up to that time. They did have to refund quite a bit of money, and the match that was missed was Bill Goldberg, and I'll just say it, to my opinion, his best match he's ever had when he beat Diamond Dallas Page to retain the championship. Yeah. And I've got it, Bill. I've got it.
Let's see it.
DDP up first. Motions to the crowd for the Diamond Cutter.
Can he get it? You know he's trying to get him up for the jackhammer, but he's got only one arm to do it with. It's amazing. Amazing.
He can do it, no arms.
No, he couldn't.
Oh, first time he hasn't been able to that I know of.
Gonna try again.
Sure he is. Little surge of energy. He's sucking it up. Page has got the Diamond Cutter. 1, 2. Goldberg's out at 2. Hooks him. Page gonna try suplex. Forget about it. Goldberg got him up. Goldberg's got him up. Jackhammered him down. 1, 2. It's Goldberg. It's Goldberg.
That's why he is undefeated, and that's why he is 155-0.
Would you agree with my statement, Bill Goldberg's best match ever?
Yes, and here's why. Because Paige was in it. Because Paige was invested in Bill Goldberg, the person, and his character. And of all the people, and again, it's not a shot, but all the people that Bill worked with, from Hogan and everybody on down, Bill was under... I think I was the only one, his first match, where he had no pressure. Because you can't screw up a debut, right? Unless you really, between the two guys, we really would have screwed it up. So there was no pressure. But in that one with Dallas, Dallas was invested in the story. It elevated Dallas, who was already at the top. But I think his what's the word I want to use? His demeanor towards the whole thing and how Dallas approached the match is what helped make that one of Bill's best matches ever. Because his opponent was invested in the same thing he was in. Don't forget the time that we're talking about. There was a lot of egos, a lot of this. Okay, you're going to put the guy over, but it doesn't have to be the greatest thing in the world. And Dallas, that wasn't who, Page is. His thing was every match he was in was going to be, he was going to try and make it the best match he ever had. But I wholeheartedly agree. That was probably Bill's best match ever.
I think they did a great job with the storytelling of the two history of those guys because, of course, DDP instrumental in bringing in Bill Goldberg to wrestling then at WCW. And I think with Bill Goldberg, in my opinion, don't know Bill Goldberg, you do, or you've interacted with him, I haven't. He seemed to, in his matches that weren't as great, he may not have had the best skill in the world, but entertainment aspect through the roof. But it seemed as if almost he didn't have trust in people. And this particular match, not the case.
Right.
Completely went with whatever DDP was doing. This was an interesting edit because I really only needed the last 2 minutes of the match. This was about 11-minute total, 12-minute total segment, and probably about 8 or 9 minutes of wrestling where they did do some chain wrestling.
Right.
They did do some counters, reverses. They did some stuff where they fell outside of the ring. A well-booked Bill Goldberg match. But to me, what stood out is just, and I only had to use the last 2 minutes to tell this story, but watching the whole thing, which you can't show there, was the trust that you could tell Bill Goldberg had in DDP.
Well, that was my point. Like, knowing that Dallas was not going to mislead him or take advantage of him in any way, that Dallas's job was just like everybody else's job, is to get him over. And he did that in the right way. And I think, to your point, there's a trust there because Dallas was invested in Bill as a person before the character, and Dallas was instrumental in bringing Bill into the business. So I wholeheartly agree. Bill, he wasn't on guard the whole time, or wasn't like, even if he was just mentally concerned about how he would look or be portrayed.
And I think that's what it was a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And I see it. I saw it then, and I see it now. But I think it was just that trusting of Dallas is not that guy. And if you know Dallas will look you right in the eye and go, bro, I'm not here to screw you. Bro, we're going to kill it. Trust me.
It's different from Bill's match with you, that first match we talk about.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't really expected to go over and be so huge.
Right.
It wasn't like, it was Bill Goldberg's premiere, basically, but there weren't insane huge expectations put on him because of the match there was afterwards. But with this match, he had to be with somebody, and he needed a moment like that, and they were able to capture that. I think when he reversed that suplex, he almost lost him. If he would have lost him, it'd be a different story right now.
Yeah.
But dude, they stayed the course, and he dropped that jackhammer on him, and that's just a lot of strength and balance by both of them to reverse that. And he almost went, but he kept it.
And knowing Dallas the way I do, if there was a point where he would have lost them, Dallas had a plan B, C, and D to make it work. And let's not forget that he had two of the best commentators in the world telling the story, So I think that's one of those matches where you'd get the same match if you turn the volume down without the commentating. And then, really pick it up when you hear them telling the story with you.
Yep.
So, yeah, I agree. Trust is a big thing.
They did a great job throughout that match, really commentating, talking about the relationship between the two, talking about how DDP is not afraid of Bill Goldberg, unlike other people. Because obviously the people Bill Goldberg was beating up until then were mostly in scenarios where they were heels and they were, I'll just use the term, I don't know what else to use, kind of chicken shit heels.
Yeah.
And this was not the case with this particular storyline. So it actually had to have some storytelling. Commentators did a great job, but there is one more match that happened that I'm going to share with you this evening.
Okay.
And it was not that great. So actually earlier in the night, and this is not the match I'm sharing, Bret Hart beat Sting for the U.S. title.
Yeah.
It was actually voted the worst match, I think, that year in the Wrestling Observer. But there was a match, in my opinion, that happened that night that was much worse. And it was Hulk Hogan and Warrior, a rematch from WrestleMania 6, much anticipated rematch. And let's just add that. Then let's talk about, to end this episode, how of a mess this pay-per-view was managed.
He's going for something. Hogan's got something. He's digging out. I have no idea what that is. What?
It's a lighter.
Oh. Hollywood Hogan. What was that? Was that like a fireball or something that he attempted to throw at the Warrior? He attempted to blind the Warrior, and the Warrior now rebounds from that. That was a fortunate turn of events there that didn't happen up on top. Oh, my. Hogan time the Warrior is pumping back up.
He's coming alive. I've seen this before. We all have.
And Bischoff's grabbed the referee. Horace has come in the ring. Horace hit the Warrior in the back of the head. One. Hogan wins the match. I can't believe what we just witnessed.
Either can I. I can't believe, Tony Schiavone, what we just witnessed either. Okay, so obviously, let's start at the beginning for me. There was not a much anticipated rematch for myself. Wrestling had changed by now, at this point in time.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't need a Hogan Warrior rematch. I know they were really relying on it to go over bigger. There was a lot in this pay-per-view, too. Man, what the hell happened with that fireball thing? Like, you were backstage through all this. What was said about this match, first of all? Then what was said about the pay-per-view, because it was managed terribly?
I think a lot of people, their expectations were met on that match, watching it from the back, because no one saw it as being, the buildup was, dare I say, awful. Everything about it was awful. And you had one guy who's going to live his gimmick and do his thing to protect himself. And then I feel like you had Hogan, who was doing things he wouldn't have done just to get through the match. If that makes sense, right? Instead of making it more difficult and like struggling and, half a shoot, brother, where we're going after each other, let's just get through this thing and go with the scenario we talked about. But it wasn't even like one of those ones where you watch a match and the guys really enjoy it in the back. It was one of those things going, damn, man, like there was no need for it. And it wasn't what I don't
happened with the fireball, Bill.
Come on, man. It when it takes 5 minutes to do, it's already done. And you saw where the cameraman was. You saw all these things. And then the fact that Hogan put his hand up and Warrior was selling something that didn't happen. And then the half-ass fireball comes out. It didn't matter anyway.
At least he kicked the crap out of him afterwards.
You can't blind the Warrior. And then they go into all that other. It was a mess. And it was a laughing stock. And it was... And it was, I think it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Nothing good came out of that Warrior run when he was there. Nothing.
That's the takeaway. I'm actually not as hard on Hogan as some people are. But obviously,
I would have much rather seen Hogan not go through the motions of what the potential story would have been and just do what needed to be done, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And sometimes that means just ruffling feathers and lack of a better term, some people say going into business for yourself, but Warrior was already in business for himself on that. Clearly, to me, there was no concern on what the end product was on one side of it, and I think it painted Hogan in a really crappy light. And that fireball was the most ridiculous thing in the world.
I edited it out. Right? It took much longer to light than that.
Let me undo the paper. Let me find the lighter. Let me take the baggie out so it's not wet from my sweat and all this other stuff. And there could have been a million other different ways to do something like that. But in the grand scheme of the storyboard, we'll throw fire in his eyes and blind him. But it didn't matter.
And the Horse Hogan thing, that thing made no sense.
Nah. They tried like heck, and Horace was a good guy, but it just didn't. So, like I said, in that time, there was a lot of things being thrown at the wall that were not sticking, but because of who was on top and calling the shots, those things, fell through the cracks and were allowed to be done.
Talk to us about the pay-per-view that night. What was the atmosphere like when they ran over, missed most people didn't even, I was actually watching it live, I didn't get to see it. What was the general feeling around the locker room when this pay-per-view was handled?
If I remember right, it was one of those things, who that blankety blank is in charge of this, and how did you let that happen? And now, because that's when all the boys knew about the gate and the buy rates and the pay-per-views. And so now the business sense and a lot of the guys came out and go, you've got to be, crapping in my oatmeal here. And then the next night, now you're going to take that whole segment away from everybody who's supposed to be working and redo the show so you can show it.
Refund the pay-per-view buys.
Yeah.
It wasn't much longer after this where you ultimately saw the complete demise of WCW.
Yeah. It was so much grasping at straws, and like I wasn't in the meetings, but it just seemed like everybody was listening to certain things and, okay, well, let's try that. Let's do this. Well, if that's not going to work, let's do this. And who really cares? Let's just do something. But
Honorable mentioned it in the episode, and I'm actually trying to edit it right now and get it out before midnight. It's actually, today's the 26th. It was probably my top 5 matches of all time. It was 1997 Halloween Havoc, again in Las Vegas. But Rey Mysterio defeated Eddie Guerrero in a title versus a mask match for the Cruiserweight Championship. Man, I don't know how this was. It was actually the Wrestling Observer's 4th best match that year.
Those guys,
dude, amazing match.
We're on fire every night of the week.
Yep.
Pay-per-view, TV.
Were all the boys like watching this at the monitor? Like,
yes, because look at the 2 people in the match. Highly regarded, highly loved, highly respected, and you knew what you were going to get. Wrestlers were going to get a wrestling match with some really good stuff going on. There was 2 guys out there, a little one-upmanship, but at the same time, they were both working for the same goal. And it should have easily been the main event. So that's the ones that everybody gravitated to. And then as the other things happened, the monitors dwindled and all that other stuff, and guys were leaving the arenas, things like that. But great match. If you get that one up, that's way cool. But everybody was invested in those 2 guys. And I mean, everybody, not just the fans, everybody in the back was invested. And people wanted to figure out, how do I get to work with Eddie? How do I get to work with Ray? That was the thing back then.
ECW started the trend with the cruiserweights, and WCW put them on a prime level, which is so good. At the end of the day, if they did one thing right, you can throw that in the hat, what they did with the cruiserweight division.
Yeah, and hats off to Conan for brokering that whole thing. Conan providing the avenue to get that kind of talent and to build that part of it. And all those guys were amazing, man. It was a pleasure and a joy working with all of them. They made you step up, and at the same time, you had the most fun in the ring, because it was like, holy crap, here we go,
Absolutely. Man, I was cutting you off trying to say it, not because I wanted to, I just didn't know when you were done. But another great episode. I will say, if you're not checking this out live, you might be missing out. I don't know what we're going to get away with sharing. This is an experiment in process. I might have to tweak what's been shared. But if you're not joining this live, you're missing out on a little bit of an experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, I like this. I like this live platform. And again, I'll say it I love what we're doing. I love how you're doing it and leading the charge with the Bill DeMott Experience. And I love this live stuff. And I think when people can see our expressions and what we do, I know I get a little animated when we start talking about certain matches and things, but really cool, man.
I was doing some head shaking during that last video. Anyway, yeah. So make sure you're checking out the podcast at BillDeMott.com. We've got a bunch. This is going to be the 32nd episode of the reboot. So yeah, it's been going along and moving well. We're moving in the right direction, man. Appreciate everyone's support. If you can't join us live, of course, just go to BillDeMott.com, check out all the past episodes and the ones up and coming.
Yeah, keep the questions coming in. We want to put you over. We'll put you right on the show. We'll talk about you, and again, we'll follow you and retweet it and whatever else it is. I really enjoy the interaction with our fans and the things that we're doing. So yeah, everybody go to the platforms and follow Jeff and I and just follow the experience, and we'll keep having fun.
I'm at Podcast Father. He's at Bill DeMott. Yeah, you can contact us on social media or at the website. There's a contact form, or BillDeMottPod@gmail.com. Until next time, though, we do encourage you all to keep being yourselves and, of course, to keep being great.